Hi guys, welcome to Animation Juice. My name is Richard and it's Monday, which means it's usually time for an animation tutorial. However, I am really pressed for time this Monday, but I still want to get something of value out to you guys. So what I want to do in this episode of Movie Monday is review this book by Richard Williams. It's called The Animator's Survival Kit. I come back to it time and time again. I've had it for years and years and years. It's really old, but I'm going to review it very quickly today for you guys. So let's jump in. So here it is, The Animator Survival Kit by Richard Williams. This is a huge book. It is very tall and it is very thick and it is packed full of everything you could ever want to know to get started in animation. And even if you are well into and established in animation, it is something which I particularly come back to time and time again. Richard Williams was a director. He's most famous for being a director of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and he trained under a lot of the old masters like Milt Kahl. In particular, he often recounts, and Ken Harris, and he often recounts stories throughout the book of his times at the old studios, learning from those great men. So let's start with the pros. The pros are, it is a exhaustive book on getting started in animation. Whilst it is all the examples are hand drawn, don't lead you to assume that this is for only a 2D animators. He's talking about the principles of animation, which are separate from the tool or the medium which you apply those principles on. So this isn't just for 2D animators who use a pencil to do animation. This isn't for 3D computer animators who use their computer to use these principles of animation. It's not just for stop motion people who use plasticine to implement these principles of animation. It is purely about the animation principles, and it is very exhaustive, and it's an accumulated knowledge of all of the old masters as well, because like I say, he studied under those guys, so he's put all of his knowledge that he's learned from others and himself into this huge tome. So that is the first thing. It is really exhaustive on the animation principles. The second thing is that there is a huge amount of walk cycles, run cycles, a lot of movement, just like everyday movement. There's a great Milt Kahl walk. Just loads and loads. And then he talks about the timings of the walk, how many frames for runs, 4 frames for a fast run, 6 frames for fast walk, 8 frames for a slow run or cartoon walk, 12 frames brisk, business-like, natural walk. You know, he's very exhaustive. You've even got runs from different angles there. You can see you've got the side on, front, back. You've got a larger framed man, or Batman, running there, which is a great example of the weight, how the weight bobs and bounces through the run cycle. Which leads me on to the second point. This is an incredibly clear book. You can see that all the drawings are really neat. They're colour coded for the different positions. We've been talking in our examples about the ups, the downs, the passing position, the contact, which are all really helpful positions and keystones, key poses in like walk cycles, which are important to hit, so that you know the whole walk is going to be successful. And so he's colour coded those drawings. So he's broken down the very complex subject of animation into quite simple concepts, which is incredibly valuable, especially when you are first starting out, because it's incredibly clear. It's very clear. I would say at least half, if not 2/3 of this book are purely on walks, runs, jumps, sneaks. And they're giving you 2 different types. One demonstrating a bit of overlapping action. The bottom one's a bit more extreme than the top one, so it shows you how you can push your animation as well. And all of the timings are there. You can see the little numbers underneath all the drawings. That's an indication of how many in-betweens you need to put in between the key poses, which is invaluable, especially when you're learning about the principle of timing. There's a great section on facial animation, especially lip sync, and how much flexibility you can get in the face. We were talking about reverse arcs in the last episode, and you can see that he's done a really great demonstration with this guy using a mallet to hit an anvil, and you can see he's marked in red the reverse arcs in the guy's spine to really accentuate and show clearly the benefit of reverse curves. It goes through, it's got a lot of the principles of animation, it's got all of the principles of animation in it. They're not subheaded under the 12 principles as they are in another great book called The Illusion of Life, but they are, you will find if you read through, there's a whole section just dedicated to anticipation. But a lot of the other named principles are sort of touched on throughout the book. He even does a great section on animating, how much flexibility and overlap you can get happening in the hand itself. So in quite rigid, bony structures, you can get a lot of flexibility. There's a great section on dialogue at the end of this book, and here you can see he's saying, talks about the best ways to break down the dialogue if you are doing some lip syncing, how to break down the dialogue, and the best ways to how to use the mouth shapes, not to try and accentuate every single syllable that's happening. So that's a great section. And the other pro about this book that I really enjoy as well is there's a lot of anecdotes about his time with the old animators and his time in the old studios, and I find that it's not just a textbook, but it has got some interludes of nice stories, and he recounts quite warmly his time with the older guys. Like, he even sort of illustrates just quite really cool drawings. That's Milk Carl shouting at him, saying about he's asking, should I listen to music when animating, and Milk Carl's shouting at him, of course not, all the stupid goddamn questions I ever heard, I never heard such a stupid question. He says that he can't do two things at once, so don't listen to animation. There you go. I'm not smart enough to think more than one thing at a time. So, and I agree with that. Those are the pros. It's an exhaustive book on animation principles. It's got a massive section on runs, walks, jogs, sprints, sneaks, all of the sort of movement mechanics, you would say. About half, if not 2/3 of the book is dedicated just to all types of runs and walks. It's got a great section on lip sync at the end, and it's got it touches a little bit on animal movement as well. It's got his thoughts on directorship, and it's also got some nice history in it as well, and tales of how things used to be done, which also leads me on to the cons. There aren't many cons. I absolutely adore this book, and it is one of the single most used animation books or textbooks, you would say, that I come back to time and time again. You can see it's so dog-eared. It's the most used book. But I would say, to give a balanced review, I do feel like I should mention a couple of tiny cons, which maybe, whilst he does talk about the history, some of the things that he talks about, like the best techniques to flip paper, when they did paper animation on the 12 or 15 field paper on the peg bars, I used them, and so that's quite interesting to me. But I know a lot of people who aren't 2D animators or haven't got any experience in 2D animation may find that a little bit irrelevant. So, and there's a few sections like that, and talk about how the old cameras used to be made. And look, there's a great example of the old X sheets and how they used to layer the all of the background elements. So you've got the background and some foreground, some midground, some foreground, and then you've got your characters, and how they used to sandwich it all on different cell sheets, and then take the pictures with the camera, which is quite fascinating to me how they used to do it, but again isn't really relevant to a lot of animators these days. So there's a minor con, and the other minor con as well is it is quite technical. A lot of the walks that he is displaying, whilst he is able to break down quite complex subjects into simple concepts, and it's very clear, I do find a lot of the walks, the runs, and those examples a little formulaic. And he even recounts stories about the Milk Carl, saying that Richard Williams was very analytical and quite formulaic in his understanding of the animation principles. But that is such a minor point, because analysis actually allows us, the junior, the apprentice, to learn these animation principles much easier. So those are two very minor cons, just to give a more well-balanced review. The other con, which is sort of a moot point really, is the animal section at the back. It's quite a small section. You can see there's some two-legged animal walks there, like a dog, and the one there. But literally, those are the only two pages of animal movement. However, I say it's a moot point because he has got a newer edition of the Animator Survival Kit. I believe it's called the Animator Survival Kit Extended Edition, and in that I believe that it has got a much more it's got a much bigger animal section, and also I think there's a few more updates to it as well. So it's got everything that this book has, plus a few more updates for the modern animator. So if you are going to get the Animator Survival Kit, I would get the newest version, the extended edition. It's got like rainbow letters on the front. You'll see it on Amazon, as opposed to just the first Animator's Survival Kit. The expanded edition is more expensive than the original version. On Amazon you can get it, the expanded edition, for £23, but the original version is only about 11 or 12. So if you are strapped for cash, I would go with the original, because it's still got a lot of great content. The majority of the content that you'll find in both books you will find in the original. However, if you can splash out a little bit more for the £23 version, the expanded edition, I would highly recommend getting that. You're going to get everything that you've got in the original, plus you're going to get a modern update, plus more animal movement at the back. So that would be my recommendation. So to conclude, the Animated Survival Kit by Richard Williams is a fantastic book, and if you were going to spend any money on a book, if you're just going to buy one book, this would be the book to buy. It's gonna be a companion to you for life as an animator. It's a big book, and I think that's reflecting the price, but I think it's a very fair price. So it is well worth the expense. And if there is a single book that you're going to start with on animation, that will be the book that I would recommend. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Movement Mondays. I hope that the book review was useful to you. I would be interested to see if you like the book review episode. I mean, I've been meaning to do a book review for a while now, so do let me know if you like this episode by leaving a like or a comment, and make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest videos as they come out. One final thing, we do have a new resource book ourselves called the Book of 100 Classic Cartoon Hands. It is a brilliant ebook, and it is really useful if you want to know how to draw the hand from all different types of angles, holding all different types of things. You can go buy it now. It's $4.99. The link is on the screen below, and your support is greatly appreciated. It allows us to keep doing these videos, so go ahead and buy it. I think you'll be really pleased with the buy. So that's it for this week, guys. Have a great week, and I'll see you later.